G'day guys, in this video I'm just going to go through the installation of a Kenwood head unit into a Mazda BT-50. This is a 2015 to 2017 XTR and GT. I'll go through all the Aerpro patch leads. Now, I'm not keeping this head unit because it doesn't work as advertised. It doesn't do the one thing that it's supposed to do, which is the one reason that I bought it for, which is wireless mirroring for Android, which would in theory turn it into an Android device, but it doesn't do it, it doesn't work. So to me it's essentially pointless because I can't use it for offline maps like ExplorOz or Wikicamps, and so it's no good to me. Personally, I don't rate it, but other people might like it. Maybe you don't have a BT-50 but you're interested in the display itself, in which case this video could be helpful to you because I go through the full install process and all the parts and how to adjust it and all that sort of stuff. And I do go through the selection process and how I ended up on this. It wasn't my first choice by any means, and as it turns out it's no good regardless. All that info is in the original video, and I'm just publishing the video because someone else might find it useful with the part numbers or the install process. So here is that original video. G'day guys, today I'm going to be installing a new head unit. Got the Kenwood DMX9720XDS. Now this wasn't actually my preference of head unit, but I've sort of had to select it because of a few issues that arise when you're trying to pick something for a 2015 to 2017 BT-50 XTR or GT badge. So I'll go through all of that. I'll go through why this eventually became my choice, but I'll run over all the alternatives and what I consider to be the better options for people that don't own this car. I think there are better options, so we'll run through all that as well. I'll also run through a quick comparison of this compared to the Alpine floating head units, and I'll go over why I wanted a new head unit, what I was looking for in a head unit, why I wanted to get rid of the old one, all the parts included in the Kenwood, and all the parts included in the fitting kit that came with it, all the patch leads, so on and so forth, all the weights and costs involved, the installation, and a brief overview of the unit up and running. So quite a bit to go over, and chapter marks will be down below if you want to skip ahead to the install or to the operation of this unit, for example. But before we get into that, I'm just going to briefly touch on selecting a head unit, what to look out for, why I wanted one, and the difficulties with choosing one for this model of car. Now firstly, the reason I wanted to upgrade is because the included unit is slow, it is non-responsive. The touchscreen often won't respond to anything at all for up to 5 minutes, and then when it does start responding, it is misaligned and it doesn't actually register the correct touch position. The maps are out of date, they're crap, and you have to pay hundreds of dollars to try and get them updated. I also wanted a bigger screen, I wanted Android Auto, and I wanted to be able to run apps like ExplorOz, for example, from the head unit itself. So this Kenwood unit is a 10.1 inch floating screen. That is not my preference. I actually wanted about a 9 inch screen, which is the maximum that you can have. That gets recessed into the fascia and it has a nice factory look without blocking any vents and stuff like that. So what I was looking for mostly was an Android based system, and I had a few preferences. I made a few orders before settling on this one. This is actually my third purchase of sorts. So I'll just go through a few of those options now, the order that I was sort of looking at them and ordered them, and we'll just have a quick look at the websites as well so you can have a look at them, because these might be better suited to your car. If you don't have this model of car, there's probably a model that plugs directly into your existing system, and it's a lot cheaper than going with something like the Kenwood unit. So my first choice was TI's, the CC3 model, which we'll just have a look at now. Alright guys, so what we're looking at here is the TI's CC3. Now I first heard about these in the forums, and then I looked into a lot of YouTube videos and other forums. The CC3 is what I originally purchased and had to return. The 2K was not released at that time, that was 5 or 6 months ago. Basically this is an Android based unit. These are so much closer to what the manufacturing cost is. There is way less markup on these, but compared to your big brand name companies and stuff, you're getting a lot more bang for buck. You're getting closer to what the actual cost of the item is. These are Android based, they have SSD, they connect to the Wi-Fi, you can install 4G SIMs into them. They are better than a lot of the other head units in a lot of ways. I've seen YouTube videos where guys play around with the audio options, and these are quite highly rated. So AliExpress, otherwise you can buy from, this is TI's Australia. It is the same product, except they seem to add about $150 on top. The CC3 128GB gives you 6GB of RAM, 1280 by 720 display, or you can get cheaper options. The base option only has 3GB of RAM. I wouldn't recommend this one. The 4GB of RAM, I think this is a good middle ground for people, but you'll notice on the AliExpress website, you only get the base one with the CC3. Otherwise, all these are 2K versions, which is just an upgrade. These all run an 8-core CPU. Display size is 9 inches. So the 2K version is just an increased screen resolution. They've gone from a 1280-720 to a higher that's above 1080p, which is very sharp. Improved the colour and the backlighting as well. They've overclocked the chips a little bit just to get a higher frequency. I don't think this is going to make a big difference at all. But here is what it would look like. So this is the exact head unit that I have, which is confusing because this will not install into this style of head unit. So it is very confusing, but that in theory is what it would look like if I could get it to install. Now on the Australian website, they do have this note here. This is regarding the fact that this style of head unit won't actually work with their kits. This was never there when I first ordered it. This has been added since then, possibly because of the fact that I was trying to figure it out. So if we look at that slide, we have someone who's gone through. Apparently this is a Polaris unit that comes with the Mazda. So someone's gone through and made it work, but it involves a lot of chopping and changing of the harnesses, and the instructions are quite poor. They are shorthand note-taking style notes. I think I could follow this if I had to, but it seems like a lot of hassle when they could just release a video, or they could release a proper guide with actual part numbers and stop using shorthand note terms like Y-splice patch lead, which doesn't mean anything to anyone. So anyway, that's the TI's option. This would be my number one choice for basically anyone that doesn't own this style of Mazda BT-50, which is the 2015 to 2017 GT and XTR badges. I personally much prefer this style where it fits inside the fascia and doesn't block the aircon vents. So that's the CC3. I did order it, it arrived. It had a really good new fascia. It had good storage compartment with rubber mats, everything looked really good quality, but the harness does not match this model of car. They have since updated their Australian website, at least, as you saw there, with some instructions on how you can chop and change and play with things and make it work. That information didn't exist when I ordered it, and I didn't really want to go through all that hassle. I wanted something that worked straight off the bat. Next I went with premium head units, which we'll have a look at now. So the second thing I ordered after I returned the TIs was this from Premium Head Units, and I just want to note that this probably is the exact same thing as the TIs, just rebranded, possibly with a slightly different interface uploaded, but again, it fits in the fascia. They all come with GPS. This note did not exist previously when I ordered from them. They had a third option that you could click here for the 2015 to 2017 GT XTR. I was waiting for about 5 or 6 months. They never developed a harness for it, and then I cancelled the order for a refund. They now have this note on here so other people don't purchase it. 4 gig 64. This 464 I'd recommend for most people, or you can upgrade to a 6 128. So this CPU has octa-core A55, whereas the TIs did have 6 A55s and 2 A75s. So the TI's unit is possibly a little bit faster than this unit. I ordered it, they didn't ship anything out. They were aware of the issue, but it took so long for them to develop a harness that would work that I asked to be refunded. That was the second choice, which didn't work out. The third choice for me, again, still trying to get an Android-based system with online storage and a bit closer to the actual price of the product without all the brand name marketing and stuff like that, was Vhedia. This unit here will be basically exactly the same thing. 9-inch capacitive touchscreen. They have upped this to 8GB RAM and 128 storage. So this list here has been updated. In the specs section, they say that they have a 6-core processor, 4 gig and 64. So I think this part is actually out of date, but this was my third option, my third attempt to get a built-in Android-based screen that looks nicer for one and can load things from the Google Play Store. So I sent them an email and they replied saying, again, unfortunately, they don't have a harness that works with this model of car. And finally, the Polaris units, we'll just have a look at those. So this is the BT Maxx from Polaris. This is an inbuilt into the fascia. This is a PX5 9-inch touchscreen. The resolution is quite poor at 600. It's not even a 720 display. The RAM is adequate, but there's no option to upgrade. The SSD storage is 32 gigabytes. Again, no option to upgrade. And we're running an 8-core, but it's A53. The TI's unit runs an 8-core with 6 A55s and 2 A75s. The A55 is faster than the 53, and the A75 is faster again. This is more of a high processing, whereas this is an efficiency core. The premium head units run an 8-core A55, so again, that's better than the 8-core A53. The Vhedia units run a mixture of the A72 and the A53, so all of those other units seem a little bit faster with upgradable RAM and upgradable SSD with better displays as well. But all of this is relevant for the particular model of BT-50 that I have. In the frequently asked questions, 2015 to 2017 XTR GT model, this unit will not suit, and you have to get the Universal Lux or the Universal Maxx. You also have to buy this fascia kit separately, which I don't think you can get for $275 anymore. I think it has gone up a bit in price. And then we have a few other Aerpro parts that you need to buy to make this work. This is the Universal Maxx, $895. But this is for the unit only, so we still have to buy that fascia kit and all the leads on top. And it is a floating display, 10.1 inch. The specs on this unit are essentially the same. So we have a larger screen, but you don't get any extra pixels. This will only make it look even worse than it did on a 9-inch display. And we've got the A53 8-core, same again, 4 gig and 32 gig of SSD storage. So this unit, although quite cheap, I still would class it as overpriced, considering we have to buy this for $895 and then we have to buy the fascia kit and everything on top. You can get the TI's unit for $633. Now this will be more expensive. It's about $820 once you include taxes and shipping, but $820 comes with the fascia and everything. The premium head units one for $890, and just ignore this price here, by the way. It is always like that, crossed out with a special price. It's not a special, this is the real price. Vhedia for $978, but that includes everything as well. And all of these units are faster, more up to date. So that kind of put me off this Polaris unit. It seems very outdated, a little bit overpriced with slower processors, and it still had that floating 10.1 inch display. So this was what I was about to go with, but to get the Universal Maxx, you're left with that floating 10-inch screen. It looked slow, it looked out of date, 32 gig storage, 4 gig RAM. I had heard from reviews that it's not fast enough for day-to-day stuff, but it is good for those long-range touring trips and stuff like that. I decided not to go with that for now. I could always fall back on it as a cheaper option. It's probably a good choice for a lot of people, but I wanted something that was a bit quicker, a bit more responsive in day-to-day driving conditions. So for most people with any other type of car, I would recommend probably going with the TIs was my first choice, or premium head units, or Vhedia or something like that. So eventually I had to give up on the Android-based operating system, and I decided to just look at what kits were available for this sort of car using websites like Automotive Superstore. So you can see they provide all these patch leads that come from Aerpro. You look at the Aerpro website and you type in your model of car, it'll give you a rundown of the different patch leads available. So just on the Aerpro website, you type in your car and you can find out different parts for it. For the 15 to 17 GT XTR with a Kenwood unit, it'll tell you the different patch leads you need. So for steering wheel controls, you can have this APP9KE7, or you can buy the APP8KE7 with the APK WPL. And then down further, it has your basic car components, like the fascia kit number, the steering wheel control number, you got your antenna adapter and primary harnesses. If you click on these, you'll be given a little bit more information on them. So you can have a look through everything, have a read of all the extra information, and you can sort of figure out what you need to plug things together. Now I found these individual patch leads cheaper elsewhere, but once you included all the shipping of having to find the cheapest prices everywhere, it worked out cheaper just to get everything from Automotive Superstore, have it all shipped as one package, and it makes it a lot easier if something goes wrong. You only have one point of contact to get things cleared up. After all that, I just had to choose the head unit, and I was deciding between the Alpine, the ILX F509 and F511, and this Kenwood unit. Now obviously I went with the Kenwood unit. I'll just show you how I came to that decision. So I was looking at the Alpine floating units as well. They offer the 509A, which is a 9-inch, and the 511A, which is 11-inch. 11 inches is way too big for me. It's just going to block everything, and the 9-inch would be my preference of the two. Now for $1,600, we're about double what the TI's unit would have cost me already, and we still have to figure out what fascia and stuff we need, as well as all the cords. So I wasn't a big fan of this. There's no physical buttons, there's no volume knob. You have to buy that as an added extra. And the Kenwood unit, 10.1 inches, which is a bit bigger than I would have liked, but I like the physical buttons at the bottom. I like the volume knob. This unit has one feature that the Alpine doesn't, that made it worthwhile purchase for me. Even though it's not an Android based unit and I can't upload maps directly, it advertises as being able to do wireless mirroring for Android, and I've seen other people use this on YouTube and they can control the phone through the touchscreen on the screen. That basically, in a roundabout sort of way, will give me access to different apps like ExplorOz or Wikicamps, and I can run it wirelessly through my phone. I don't think that's as good as the Android-based units because you can't actually have the maps saved on the device and it's reliant on your phone and it's using the phone's storage and processing power. But it is a way to install it, and I just want to try this, get it over and done with, and at least get something up and running. So I was never going to get the 511. 11 inches is ridiculous, it's too big. Blocks all your controls, blocks your aircon vents. The 9-inch would have been ideal, but the Alpine unit is a bit overpriced. It doesn't have physical buttons, doesn't have the volume knob. You have to pay for that as an added extra. But most importantly, it didn't offer actual screen mirroring with controls from the head unit. So it only offered HDMI mirroring, which is useless. I need to be able to use the head unit like I would if it was Android based with controls from screen mirroring. That is why I've gone with the Kenwood unit. Now, the 10-inch I think is a little bit too big, but I should be able to make it work without blocking the aircon vents too much and without blocking the climate control, so on and so forth. Alright guys, so we're going to go through the boxes now, the package, the Kenwood head unit by itself, and the whole package with all the patch leads. Now I bought this in a kit, the total cost was $1878.47. Now that's a far cry from the TI's unit that I first bought, which was about $787. Big difference there, but I just wanted to get this over and done with and get something in. So it does come in a package, but the different items are itemised in the receipt. So if you want to know the rough value of all the different components, we'll just run through that quickly. So the Kenwood unit DMX9720XDS is valued at $13.24. Plastics, the fascia replacement is from Aerpro FP9233, valued at $439.99. And I've already ordered and returned the TI's unit, and I've got to say the TI's unit was a lot better than this, and this almost costs the same as the whole TI's unit with the head unit included. The TI's unit didn't have a massive opening at the back, and it had rubber pads in here to stop things sliding around. So as far as I'm concerned, this is massively overpriced. I wouldn't value this at $440. It does come with this, so we'll have a play around with this later, but I'm pretty sure that is meant to be a bit of a backing plate there, but it's pretty crap. They should have a full moulded plastic recess in there. So we'll see how it all looks when it's done, but at the moment I think that's pretty ordinary. These plugs might be to do with mating up the central locking and the hazard lights, so we'll just have a look at that when we go to install it. Got another Aerpro part, APO58. This is a DIN antenna adapter, and this is valued at $6.70 in the makeup of the total kit. Now we saw on the Aerpro website before, for the steering wheel controls, you can get a single harness or you can get two separate pieces. They've sent out the two separate pieces for me. So the first is the APP8KE7. This is valued at $15.99. This is ISO harness to suit Kenwood. Instructions on the back that sort of show you roughly where this will go in the wiring loom. And the other part of that was the APK-WPL, valued at $9.99. So we've got patch lead and Kenwood, and a little diagram on the back here. The last bit of the Aerpro inclusions is the CHMZ14C, and this is to suit steering wheel controls hopefully for this BT-50. This is valued at $91.80. So hopefully this works to retain steering wheel controls. Here's the basic diagram on the back. So just quickly with the Kenwood unit, obviously instructions. This is the double DIN here. This is our 10.1 inch screen. I won't open it yet because I don't want to do any premature damage or scratches to it. This is a USB lead, plugs into the back of that. So this is the power harness. All your mounting bolts, screws, brackets, two little bits of trim, tidy everything up once it's been installed. A remote with batteries, which I won't be using. Now this is for steering remote. This has also been replaced with the Aerpro kit. We've got a microphone that we plug into the back. We run this out for voice calls and voice activation. It'll just make things a little bit clearer. This looks like the GPS antenna. This is the digital radio antenna. Alright guys, so this whole top section of plastic gets replaced. This fascia is better than the one that they've sent. The one that they've sent doesn't even have that backing on it, which is annoying. The one from TI's that came out did have a proper backing on it, and it added a rubber pad in here. I'll just use the head unit for maps and stuff. There's no point having a phone mount as well. Now to bring this off is pretty easy. You need 2 dash or trim removal tools. Hardest bit is getting them under, getting them started. Start from the back like that. Once you've got them in, work them towards the front. This will just pop off like that. Now this, you can just pop it out under the aircon, or you can try and pry the aircon out. And we have a central locking and hazard light clip electrical connection behind there that we just need to disconnect. These can be awkward. The aircon controls just pull out. Now on top, just going to take out these screws, and then from memory the head unit will pull straight out. Now we just need to undo all the connections at the back. There we go. So if you have this head unit, you might have trouble finding aftermarket accessories, but we've got these Aerpro patch leads that should line up with this, so we'll see how that goes. The way I'm going to do it is plug in everything that goes into the back of the head unit, and then it should be left with not very much left to connect the head unit to the factory unit. Got the USB, this could be some sort of antenna. Got your GPS to go in there, data link we won't be using. There's the DAB, that's your digital radio. HDMI port, we won't be using that. The main power harness will be pretty easy to figure out. All these audio visuals I won't be using, and the mic we will be using. So that's just a 3.5mm jack. Starting with USB power, we have the USB lead supplied from Kenwood. They suggest taping it up so it doesn't come loose. The GPS clips into the GPS connection. Now, we did disconnect a GPS point from the back of the original head unit. From what I can see, we don't reuse that. We have to run this out. The clip won't clip into there. It's not the same, it's different design. So that's those two. The mic in, pretty obvious one. So all the factory stuff is sort of getting done. Now we have this. This is where our APA58 antenna adapter goes into. That converts that to this, which plugs into the one that is in the car at the moment. So that's all good. There's your antenna done. So pretty simple so far. We've done that whole side of the head unit. Now over here, this is the DAB antenna. Again, it's labelled on the back of the head unit, so plug that in. So plugged into here, this is the one that comes with the unit. We're not using that. We've got the APP8KE7 plugged into the Kenwood unit. And we have the CHMZ14C. This is the end that plugs into the factory harness in the car. So that's where we'll get our power, ignition, and all that sort of stuff from. Little plug here. You got a steering wheel CAN bus module. This helps the steering wheel controls operate properly. It only plugs into one side. Then we have our little patch lead that we got in the other kit. This is the APKWPL, and that goes into the other side here. SWC, steering wheel controls. So this end of the plug, this is a female end. There is a male end on this harness. There we go. Remote control, steering wheel, remote input. That's a male one. The female one, steering wheel control. So we'll mate them together. So that's all protected and connected now. These two plugs, they're not color coded, but they only go one way with these two plugs. So you just find the ones that match. That's basically it. You have all these options for cameras and stuff, but I'm not using any of that. So as long as these are all protected and won't short out on anything, then I'll forget about all that. We've got one lead here, purple and white. The CHMZ14C instructions have all your colours here. Purple/white is reverse, so we just line up our reverse, which is also purple here, without the white stripe though. We should have a male and female, which we do. You just got to dock these together. Alright, that is it. This plugs into the car. What I've noticed is that from the car we disconnected an aux in and a USB. I assume we don't use them anymore. The USB runs to the glove box. I won't need that now anyway because I've got this USB cord. I will double check that the factory GPS doesn't work. Otherwise we just run this GPS out anyway. It's no drama. But I think that's it. So we should be good to go with mounting the head unit and getting it all set up how we want it to sit in the car. So over here, you have all your camera feeds and stuff. I'm not using any of that. I may put a dash cam in here in the future. There is a dash cam cord there, it's all labeled. Microphone, USB, GPS. This is our adapter for the antenna. The Kenwood unit, the APPK one, steering wheel controls, factory plug. These only plug in one way, so you can't mix them up. That patch lead goes in here, off to that steering wheel control there. This is a protective cover. The head unit doesn't work if this isn't connected, so we'll come to that in a second. That fascia kit comes with this. I've used up 3 screws on each side. There's 3 changes that you can make here. You can make the screen further out or deeper in. You can change the height of the screen, and obviously you can change the tilt of the screen as well. If you want to pull it out, so for example if you can't tilt it back enough, you do that by removing the 4 screws on the bottom, removing these plastic clips. You take out the screws pinning this to the back, and then this will pull out. Take these screws out. They won't normally be this loose, but I've already done it. And this is only if you're not happy with where the screen is sitting. And then in the pack you have these brackets here. So instead of it sitting there, this one is for the right, for example. It would come out here, and then you have the one for the left marked with a little L. So there you go. You just change these brackets out here for these ones if you want the screen to sit further out. I'm going to put it back the way it was, so I'm going to put these back in. But just so you know, that's the first adjustment that you can make, is the depth of the screen from the actual double DIN unit itself. So I've returned the position back to normal. If you do move it forward, you have these covers that go over the new brackets, but these are not needed if you've left it in the normal position. The next adjustment that we make is to the height of the screen, and that is done with the 4 screws here. So you loosen them up and you slide this around, but to see how it's going to sit properly, first we'll install this into the car. We have the factory GPS. Unfortunately, it's a different design clip. There's no patch lead. I haven't traced it yet, but I'm pretty sure that'll be the GPS. I might actually take that out and run the new GPS up into that position, and that just removes any redundant cabling from behind the dash, even though it is well hidden and well protected. We also have these here. This one is USB. I believe it goes down here into the back of the glove box USB port. This doesn't get replicated with the new head unit. There is no patch lead for this, and I never used it except to fire up the quad lock, which wasn't strong enough to charge that anyway, so it's useless. Okay, so that is one lead for the USB and aux. So with the GPS, they provide you this plate to mount it to. So you stick this to something, then you stick the GPS unit down onto that. Front and central somewhere. I'm just going to replace it, stick that directly on there, and that will be perfect. I'll just add some little bit of cable protection on here maybe, as it goes in between this metal surface. So we'll take this out, we'll clean that, stick this down, and that'll be the GPS unit done. So GPS antenna out. So we don't need a lot of protection here. I wouldn't really consider this cable at risk. 7mm Corrie, it actually squeezes itself between these ridges, so it's not going to go anywhere. And I'm not too worried about cleaning this surface. It is not a surface exposed to dirt. So that's the GPS antenna done, ready for connection. So the last connection is the microphone. Clip like this, has a sticky back. They recommend putting it on the steering column, but I think that's stupid because it just blocks your view of what you're trying to view in there. If you've got a roof console like this, you can actually loop it up over this lip and sort of have it hanging here. But I'm just going to put it on this trim, just hooking it in. I'm not sticking it to anything, and just the firmness of that trim against the roof lining will just hold it there. I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done, and then I'll just run this in corrugated tubing until it gets to here, and then like the others, just tape them up behind here. So this is where I've installed the microphone. You can see there is a gap there, but it is pinched between the trim and the roof lining. If that loosens up over time, I will cut this bracket and either stick it down with some glue or I'll move it to the roof console and lift that hook up into here, and it'll just hook onto here. Then I'll have to run the cable up and through there, and then across down that trim. I have put the cable down this trim because the other trim already has the reverse camera, the UHF, and that new DAB antenna is all over on the left hand side. So I thought I'd just keep the microphone clear to the right hand side. Hopefully it gets less interference, and we'll just see how we go with this mounting position. That's pretty easy to change in the future. Now we're ready to start putting in the head unit. So there is that microphone clip. This is the factory antenna that we have the adapter for that just clips in there. This is the main one with the only remaining clip left. Got the DAB antenna we've just run in, and this is our GPS system. GPS being up here where the old one was. So that's a good mounting position for it. It's on metal plate. It is horizontal, which is recommended in the install. This bit here is part of the old frame. That is what made it need to be lifted up. So we take this out because the new frame will reuse these bolts, just gets bolted into there. This USB cord, I am just going to add in, this was the one that was with the quad lock on the dash before. So that is a USB-C, A to C, which is the connection that everything should be. So I've got the USB up here. I'm not 100% sure where I'm going to run that just yet. I could run this out where the GPS antenna goes. So we'll just see if this fascia goes on now. And for this particular car, these plugs fit into here. I don't need to use this adapter harness. I'm not sure what style of car this is for, but for this model, it seems to just clip in. So this is the old fascia unit. We have removed the aircon ducts and put them on here, just reusing the Torx bits, they're T20. The bag of red clips we've put on wherever applicable. The bag of clips was one short, so I've just taken one off here to reuse on here. I've put this plastic covering on the back, but I'm not really happy with it. I think that's crap. Surely they can do better than that. You get little tabs of tape to hold it down, but it doesn't sit properly. There's gaps, so I've run some black sparky tape lengthways around the whole thing just to try and hide those gaps, but it's still pretty crap. The one I ordered from AliExpress from TI's was basically the same as this. It had a full moulded plastic, which is way better because then I can just drill into it like I did there whenever I need to. So I'm not happy with this, but it's good to go. We'll chuck it in and we'll see how it all fits together. I fed the USB through here. It's up near where the GPS is. I'm going to drill a hole in that backing plate. So at the moment I've changed back to the OEM fascia just because this aftermarket one is so shit. It doesn't fit properly, it won't clip in. The only problem with the original one is that you don't get a nice finish around here because of this stupid shape of it. In every other way, this is better. For a start, it clips in. You've got way higher quality buttons. You don't have that stupid plate at the back. You've got a proper moulded plastic. I'll try again with the aftermarket one, but at the moment, it only clips in the front. The clips at the back don't line up. I just put this in just to make sure I wasn't missing something and there wasn't something blocking it from going in, but there's nothing at all blocking it. It's just poorly made. So pretty annoyed at that. I can't believe they charge $440 for it when it is a piece of crap. I'm going to try and remove some of these clips, see if that helps. So after lots of trial and error, I've narrowed it down to this clip not being aligned properly. So I've taken the pink clip. Everything else has a clip on it, so it's fine without this one. That's the only way I can get this to sit in. Otherwise, I was about to go back to the factory one and just leave the gaps behind. These buttons are very poor quality. I don't even think this has an illumination to show me when I've got central locking in. I've run with this for a little bit, but I might end up changing back to the OEM one or finding someone who makes a good quality one. So we'll hook the screen up now. Basically, you just slide this over. This plugs into there. If you want to change your height, you got 4 screws, 2 on each side. You need to remove them, move this around. I am going to leave it at that height, kind of in between. I do wish it was a 9-inch screen, so I can still see the aircon controls from the driving position, but it's also mostly not blocking the vents. So I could raise it higher, but then you're sort of blocking the vents. Annoyingly, it does block the central locking button. So our last bag of screws, we got 6 with Loctite on. They go straight into the unit, 3 on each side. And we've got 2 really small black Phillips head, and they go onto this protective cover. the unit won't turn on without this protective cover installed. It knows when this isn't on and it won't turn on. So put our plastic trim on. We've got these 2 screws on top. There's supposed to be 2 at the back, but because of the angle of the dash, I can't actually get them started, so I'm not too worried about them. And then down here, there is another one on each side. So I've got 4 in out of the 6, and I'm happy enough with that. Now I'm just going to put this plastic cover in with these 2 little screws here. Alright, that's it with the install. So I got everything up and running. There's no issues with the unit and the install, but the one thing I wanted it to do, which was to mirror my phone and be able to control it from the screen, it doesn't work. It doesn't come close to working. As I explained in the video, I wanted an Android-based unit. I wanted to run different apps. I didn't want to pay $1,800 or whatever they think this thing is worth just for Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, because all you get from that is Google Maps, Spotify, YouTube. It is so limited, and I don't see how they assign such value to this. I think it's way overpriced, especially considering it didn't work. Even if it did work, I thought it was overpriced, but I just wanted to get something in. But the fact that it doesn't work, it is useless. So I do regret buying it, and I definitely regret buying it from Automotive Superstore, who are just trying to make it difficult to return. Even though it doesn't work, they will try and make it as difficult as possible in the hope that people give up. The after sales from Automotive Superstore has been pathetic. They try to not let me return it because it's been installed. Obviously it's been installed, otherwise I wouldn't know that the unit didn't work. So definitely avoid Automotive Superstore if you can. Personally, I'd avoid this Kenwood unit in general. The communication between the phone and the head unit just doesn't start at all. The app that Kenwood suggests using is one of the worst apps I've ever used, and that is reflected in the poor reviews. And me personally, I wouldn't order this Kenwood unit if you're hoping to use the wireless mirroring. If you just want to drive around the city and use Android Auto, which is basically just Google Maps and Spotify and YouTube, then go for it, but you're paying a lot of money for an inferior product. So basically that left me with a few options. One was to go with the Polaris Universal Maxx, and the other was to go back to the TIs and use that wiring diagram on the TI's Australia website. It's a really bad wiring diagram, it's incomplete and sometimes nonsensical, but I've gone for the TI's option because I don't want to pay Polaris extra money for a worse screen, limited RAM, lack of storage, and another floating head display that I didn't even like. So the Polaris unit is overpriced and slow. I've gone back to TIs, and I'm going to try and hardwire that. There will be a video once I get that up and running of the TIs, and that way everyone else will be able to install an Android-based unit into this car with proper wiring diagrams and stuff like that. So that video will be coming, and my recommendation personally is get one of these Android-based devices, get the TIs or get the Vhedia. In any other car besides the 2015 to 17 GT and XTR, you don't have to do all the rewiring, it's just plug and play. It's only this model of car where it's an issue. But yeah, that is the Kenwood unit. For those that want it and want to pay that sort of money for it, then go for it. Thanks for watching. Arguably the one I should have gone, what? So the next choice for Android base, that's basically it. Well, relevant for the particular. It actually squares I want to try and keep all. I want to try kind of. Bad guys. In this video, I'm just going to show you the installation of a Kenwood